Welcome to the 1334 podcast. Today I'm joined by Christian Laffer. He is the founder of Instant Nonprofit. Christian, could you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I'm founder and CEO at Instant Nonprofit, and I'm also a dad, an adoptive dad, and just, I have 3 kids. And, and I'm also, we just talked a little bit about that. I'm also a metal fan. I love music. I love art. And I love the way people do things in this world to make the world a better place. And that sort of inspired me to do what I do. And so here we are.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into the story of Instant Nonprofit, but first, just out of the gate, what is one of the most common misconceptions people have in regards to starting their first nonprofit?
Wow. After 5,000 end-to-end nonprofit startups where we do all the paperwork and just, we take people from idea to IRS-approved 501c3 is kind of how I put it. And so people come to us with, a lot of ideas that are, they're just ideating, right? They usually have either served a mission or they see a real need for a mission, whether they experience trauma or something that was lacking in their life that they feel would benefit other people, or they know someone in that manner, or the sort of the other side of the coin is they see something, so that's seeing something beautiful to be restored. And then the other side of the coin is sort of people seeing something beautiful that's never been created before, some new synthesis of things, right? And either way, it's always been super inspiring to me, and I've always been kind of a cause-driven person. And I can tell you a little bit more about that. But to answer the question, common misconceptions, there are so many. I could spend... if this was a 10-hour podcast, we would run out of time for me to go over all of the misconceptions people have, because this industry has pretty much been run by lawyers and accountants in the past, and those professions are very sort of, it's a little bit stilted, right? You go to a lawyer and they're out to minimize your liability, and they look at all these legal things, and they're kind of paid to look at the bad things that could happen that you don't want to happen. And that focus has created so many, what I would say, areas where people can be overcautious. And one of the things that we do is not just make this process really easy and kind of have done for you, very value-driven, certainly lower cost than lawyers, nonprofit startup process, but our job actually is to let people know about the misconceptions and let people know about the information that's out there that might be overkill. And I'll give you a few misconceptions right now. One of them is that someone cannot simultaneously run the nonprofit and form the nonprofit and sit on the board, right? The board is the governing authority of the nonprofit. There are no shareholders, because there are no shares in a nonprofit. A nonprofit is governed and run by the board. And it's sort of a public trust, right? When Congress created the 501c3, which is sort of the tax designation, and most people use that term interchangeably with nonprofit, but that's that tax-exempt tax status. Congress created that, and it really is to serve the public trust. In fact, most of the good social work that's done, most of the work that's done in communities all over the country, even if it's paid for by the government, most of it is executed at the local level by a nonprofit, right? That's where you get all these government grants and everything. And so, one thing our job is to do is when people are just starting out, they don't need to be overly cautious about having, say, friends or family on the board. So a big misconception is around the board. Can I serve on the board and also be the de facto or named, titled executive director, right? Can I make decisions for the organization? And can I also sort of run the organization on the day-to-day? Yes, you absolutely can, and you probably should. Every nonprofit founder should probably, almost everyone, should sit on the board and probably be the president and the chair of the board. And then, yes, they should be the executive director. And what does that mean? The logical follow-on there is, can I get paid to do the day-to-day, right? To make the wheels go around at the nonprofit. There's actually misinformation all over the internet by probably well-meaning people that it creates a conflict of interest if you're trying to get paid by the nonprofit where you're also a decision maker. Hogwash. That's preposterous. You are the person that should get paid to run the nonprofit, because if you've conceived this mission and you've gone ahead and formed this thing, and now you're sitting on the board to help guide the decisions, you're probably the most competent person to do everything. And at the beginning, the executive director, or the one person that's getting paid at the nonprofit at the beginning, is the janitor, is the fundraiser, is the person doing the mission, serving the people, getting the dogs adopted, whatever it is. So that would be one of the biggest initial misconceptions about the nonprofit. And in no way are those a conflict. And the way I usually explain that one is you've got 3 hats in front of you on the coffee table. Well, you'd never wear 2 hats at the same time because you'd look silly. And each hat has its own purpose. One's for the rain, one's for the sun, and one is just to look cool. So those are just like your board position, right? Your board of directors, which makes the decisions. Your officer position, which might be president, and that's kind of the de facto leader, and that person runs the board meeting, right? Calls to order, goes through the agenda, etc. And so those are the first 2 hats. And the third hat is, of course, volunteer or staff, right? Somebody who sort of does the day-to-day activities to make the wheels go around. And so if you look at it that you wear those hats at different times, even inside of the one board meeting, you might take your chair hat off, and when it's time to vote on your resolutions, you put the board director hat on for a few minutes. And of course, you're serving as a board member at the meeting. And then you might be also, say, the treasurer. Maybe you're a bookkeeper, so you're the treasurer as an officer, you're a board member, and you are the bookkeeper for the organization, paid or otherwise. Those are the 3 distinct hats, and that would be perfect to wrap up in somebody who has finance in their background. Yeah. So I'd say that would be the biggest one. One of the next misconceptions is that, that nonprofits operate differently than most other businesses. And yeah, there are some things, your product is a cause, right? Your product is the way you serve the world. Your customers, you might have 2 types of customers. One is the donor, right? They're giving you money for a reason, right? To execute a purpose. And then you have the constituents, the people you're helping. And they're kind of, another type of customer. But it is a business. It is something that has to make the books balance at the end of the day, pay the bills, and have some kind of functionality to it that does resemble a business. It's just a different type of business entity. And what we help people do is look at these things a little bit more like a business, so they can get, organized, create some operational processes so it doesn't become a big, overwhelming burden, and understand what they should be doing and what is probably best to get some help with.
Yeah, that's really good. I think one of the biggest things that when people have come to me and asked, hey, I'm thinking about starting a nonprofit, what do you think? I know you're kind of running your nonprofit, and I think one of the biggest things people always mention is, well, how do I get started? Where do I need to apply? How do I even think about starting? Do I know, is this the right move? Do I even need to start a nonprofit? I think that's one of the really cool things about your organization is you are a for-profit organization, but I think one of the best things about for-profits is they provide funding and help to nonprofits. I think it's really, I think some of the most well-run nonprofits have a for-profit arm that is supporting them, and I think. And you're just the first for-profit that I've actually had on the podcast, so I just wanted to mention that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we do have a nonprofit, and we give.
I had a feeling.
Of course. I learned there was a mentor in my life named Morton Blackwell, and he has these 42 laws. In that case, it's of the public policy process, right? It was kind of a think tank policy analysis group, and one of those rules is you can't save the world if you can't pay the rent. And that is true whether you're a for-profit company or a nonprofit. And so I call this the halo effect. If you have a roofing company where you have, a production company and you do lasers and all kinds of cool events, whatever it is, it can really often be helpful to start a nonprofit on the side with your for-profit, and you can even name that similarly. Ours is the Instant Nonprofit Foundation, right? So when I show up at a black tie, I go to a gala in town here in Denver, and when I do the silent auction, or I'm walking around talking to people and maybe making some donations, it represents that Instant Nonprofit is a good corporate steward, right? It's a good citizen of the community, and isn't just out here, employing people. And I mean, I think it's business generally does good things because it's providing value to people.
Yeah.
But beyond that, that becomes known in the community, and it's like, oh, this was donated by the Instant Nonprofit Foundation. Maybe we get on the back of the brochure or something. There's nothing wrong with that reflecting well on us.
Yeah.
Because we want to be seen as an organization that if we do well and we have some extra to give, we certainly want to benefit people with it. And so
absolutely.
it can really help a business grow to have a foundation on the side and do your giving through that, because the fact is most of us in some way in our lives are already giving, and this is just a good way to structure that and also get some goodwill, some halo effect.
At 1334 Media, we believe your generosity doesn't have to be complicated. From planting churches in Thailand, helping orphanages in India, and even serving alongside our partners locally in South Georgia, every dollar you give helps another nonprofit tell their story, connect with supporters, and make a real impact. Your support fuels life-changing media and training that brings hope, awareness, and resources to causes that matter. These stories can't make a difference if they aren't heard. Join us today, because doing more doesn't have to mean doing it alone. A ton of nonprofit work, a ton of business, everything all comes from your mindset. You have to have the right mindset going into stuff. I mean, I'll just listen to Myron Golden talking about 7 essential mindsets. And so what, in your opinion, what would be an essential mindset that you would say needs to be switched on in order to begin functioning your nonprofit at a higher level?
Wow. Well, I immediately go into the esoteric in a way because, 10 years ago, almost to the day, I had a complete breakdown in my life. I mean, I screwed up everything you possibly could screw up, including this business, my marriage. Just the harder I tried, the worse things went. And so I got to this point where I was just, down, driven to my knees, and just really had to let go of all of the previous thinking that I had that got me into that situation, because I can be pretty resourceful and try to fix stuff. And boy, that got me in some trouble. And so, I started to understand that solutions needed to come from someplace other than up here, right? And in the Western mindset, and even in the church, the Western mindset is very little or very materialist, right? Mm-hmm. We look at the human body as like a set of functions, and we're throwing pharmaceuticals at it, but it was created in this beautiful way to heal itself. And much in the same way, I think about, Christ himself speaking about things and saying, in order to pray, right, we have to look at something as already being given to us. It's already in hand. The kingdom of God is at hand, he would say. Or you have to, when you pray, you have to be in a grateful mindset that it's already been done. It's already been given to you. And you're simply now, with quantum physics and all of the research that's being done on how quantum works and how all time has already happened, and we're catching up to it and crazy stuff like that. I believe that thinking in terms of intercepting a beautiful point in time, if all eventualities have happened in the quantum field and in God's view, all possibilities have happened that could have happened, and we're simply intercepting the one that we desire that's in the future, it's such a beautiful way to go about it, because it takes the burden off of us to be everything to rely on us. And so we're just going and intercepting this beautiful point in time where all these situations all these things that we're working for have already come to pass, and that we're just allowing ourselves to be in the spirit and be in the energy of that beautiful point. And that has changed my life so dramatically. I get to wake up every day and live an absolute dream life after really screwing things up about as bad as you possibly could. And that's because over 10 years, I relearned to be a human and relearned to allow and accept what is, and then do what I could to affect things but not quite be so hard on myself to like make everything happen, make myself literally sick in the process. And that has really been the number one mindset change that I've made. And I believe it completely comports with how things really work, right? People talk about the secret and manifestation. Christ was here teaching us to be grateful for what we have. Yeah. And also to do all we can to change things and to be in the mindset that they're already changed. And so I can tell you my life is certainly a testament to that truth.
That reminds me of the lady with the issue of the blood and Bartimaeus, how they just had to receive. Like, they didn't do anything else. They had to be there and they had to receive. They had to have the faith and they had to receive. That's it's really good moving forward. You just have to receive. It makes me when you were talking about it, I was really thinking about how, like, even just our words, like, we have to be careful what we're saying. You said manifest. Like, we have to be careful of what we're speaking and what we create in the future. If in Genesis 1 we were made in God's image and he is first a creator. First he created. That's what he did before anything else. First thing we learn about him isn't love, isn't sacrifice. First thing we learn is he's a creator. Second thing is we're made in his image. So if we're made in his image and we're made to create, and he creates by speaking, then we create by speaking. So why on earth would we continually, I mean, I did this my whole life, speak negatively about everything all the time. Yep. I'm a natural pessimist, so my wife's working on changing me.
And even though I was an optimist, I didn't realize that I had been programmed, and my dad had been programmed, right, and gave me some of these things that were maybe not the best that he received about himself and so now it's like even being aware of saying things like, I need this, right? Or oh, if this is going to be bad, right? Or if this bad thing happens, and even words like need, right? Words that imply lack. There are ways to turn this around that you don't have to be all woo-woo and crazy, but it's like...
that's good.
Every time I talk about a bad habit that I even have today or something that I want to change today, I now always say, in the past, I would miss my alarm and not wake up. Because if I say that I do that, or even worse, right, the most two powerful words in any language, I am. Yeah. I am not good at that. I am tired. I am this. I am that. When we're speaking these things, we're literally kind of casting a spell on ourselves because we're declaring it. And so now I say, well, in the past, I did this or that. Now, that past might have been 5 minutes ago, but if it's an intention of mine to improve in that area, why not speak as if I am this beautiful, evolving creature that is in the process of becoming more beautiful and becoming more in the image that I was created to be. And man, those little shifts are so powerful. And you got to do the work. You got to roll up your sleeves. But boy, it really makes a difference when you start to look at yourself in the way that God looks at you. Because if you're precious in his sight, you have to be precious in your own sight first. And even the greatest commandment, what is the standard? Love others as you love yourself. That means that the standard is you love yourself. You cannot love others at a greater capacity than you love yourself. And that's where everything started for me 10 years ago when I was completely broken down. My life was in a conflagration. I went to this crazy retreat that was kind of woo. And I had to stand in front of a mirror with a whole bunch of other people, right? And sort of confess my sins against myself. And I realized how hard I was on this person, and that I would never treat I'm so kind to other people, I would never treat somebody else the way I treated myself, cursing myself for failure, or flogging myself and just being like, you idiot, and swearing at myself, right? Those were the sort of sounds of my father sometimes, right? When he would see things in me that he didn't like about himself, right? And I realized how hard I had been, and I took pity on this person in the mirror. And that was a revolutionary day, because I realized that if I didn't love myself, I couldn't really get anywhere in life. And it's given me the capacity to show up for my family and my kids. And everything that I lost 10 years ago has been restored to me on my own terms because of these mindsets. And it's so amazing to be alive after going through that. I wouldn't give it up for any reason.
Yeah. It seems to me that the majority of nonprofits are built from love. It seems.
Definitely. Definitely.
It seems
Even
like.
if that love is root, even if there's a little anger, a little
Yeah.
righteous indignation, right? All
Yep.
historical movements have been started from a little righteous anger.
Yep.
But that righteous anger is rooted in love, right? Why are these people oppressed? Why do we have this lack or this
Yep.
need in the world when there's so much abundance over here? We just need to get some of that over here. And so it's okay to see a need. I just avoid looking at myself as being in need versus
Yeah.
having the capacity and being a vessel for a limitless flow of love and energy and opportunity to go fill that need and go make a difference.
Yeah, that's good. Do you want to get into how Instant Nonprofit started?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very curious about why you started it to begin with.
So when I was a kid, I was out playing with my friends, like playing in the woods in New Jersey, where there's like a mall now, and of course, right, they pave over everything. And my mom called me in. She'd pulled in and had taken my little sister to the doctor, and my sister was almost 4. Her name's Monique, and it turned out that we didn't understand why she was nonverbal at 3.5, almost 4 years old. And it turned out that even though there were no physical, unusual things, that she wasn't going to develop like the other kids. She was developmentally disabled, what we called mentally retarded back in the 70s. And she was just a wonderful kid, very present, very with it. And, we'd go out and play with her and stuff. But I ended up growing up around Special Olympics. And she became a track star. And she's the greatest human I've ever met. And a quick story. I have tons of pictures of her in second place on the podium. And she was definitely the fastest kid out there. But when she would round the corner, around the turn, and almost get to the finish line, where do they stick the stands? They always stick the stands right by the finish line. She'd veer off the course and run off the track and go high five all her friends, and everybody would have to yell at her to get back on the track. And that's just kind of that full heart she has, right? She's real present. She's real fun. And so I just thought that that's how the world worked. Like, people have a need, or people are a little different. They need some support, and all these wonderful people come and rally around them and create an organization like that.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, I went to start a nonprofit with a couple of friends for a project, and I was like, I'll take that paperwork. Like, you guys do the website and call some people. I got this. How hard can it be? And boy, did I become morally outraged at how difficult it was. I called the IRS when I had what I thought was a pretty solid application completed, and I could almost hear the chuckling in the back room, oh, don't worry, kid, this is going to take, this will take a year to approve on average, so you have plenty of time to do other things. And I was like, I've started another business. I've started an LLC. Why does that take, 30 minutes? And this one takes hours and hours. There are like 25 places that you could make a small mistake, and then it goes into a black hole. You don't know why it's being held up. And it takes on average like 11 months to approve. And so what I did was I've always been I got suspended in school a lot when I was a kid. I don't like the rules. And so I was like, I'm not going to tolerate that. And I took the agent's number on the form letter that they sent me back, that they got the application, and I called that number, but of course that agent's never there. And so what I did was I changed the last couple of phone numbers and called like 40 extensions north and south of that number. And if I could get anybody on the phone, I'd like sweet talk them and, threaten to send them chocolates and flowers and be like, what is this? Why is this process so hard? What do you see as a typical delay? What would make what would make your day? What would make you feel loved? And I ended up curating all the answers that I got from these people into what I call the love letter to a bureaucrat. Like, if Selma Hayek was an IRS agent and I wanted her to run away to Fiji and swing in a hammock with me forever, what kind of file would I give her? It would have a table of contents. It would have the EIN, number watermarked on all the pages. It would just be so beautiful that person would sneak off to their desk with my file and approve it on the spot and punch out to lunch a little early. So I tried this out, and it actually worked. I got like a 35-day approval on my first file.
That's
and
crazy.
Then I tried it for some folks in town, and that was a real challenge because they had a billionaire donor but he said, I'll give you all the money you need if you get kids registered this fall, which was in like 7 weeks. And so after a sleepless night of them, after they asked me that, I said, I'll take that challenge. And if I have to drive down there to DC or wherever this place is, I'll get it done. And I put the file together, I sent it in, and lo and behold, about 5.5 weeks later, it came back approved. They started this little Christian school out in this rural nowhere where they really needed it. And I sent my own kids to that school, and I was like, man, I am really onto something. And now 5,000 nonprofits later, all we've been doing is continually finding ways to make this easier for people so they don't have to worry, and they can put their full attention on solving this problem, on serving people or on foster animals or whatever it is that's their passion. And that sort of innovative attitude has really helped us to be the #1 rated service of our kind. I mean, there's nobody that even compares, because we don't just do a good job on the filings. We help people look like a pro when they run their board meeting, which is not fun, right? Who wants to read Robert's Rules of Order? All of the little details, we give the love and encouragement on top of doing a really great job, because we think that we can change history if we can help 100,000 other people, 10,000 other people change their little corner of the world. Because we all know now government ain't coming to help. It's up to us.
Yep. That's awesome. That's part of the reason I started 1334, is because I realized that there's a lot of nonprofits in the world, a lot of missionaries that don't have media support at all. They don't have, even if they did, they don't have the funding to be able to pay somebody else, because that needs to run the mission, And I think what better way than to just give that to people in need that actually need it and that are doing God's work, It's really, really cool. I love what you guys are doing. And I don't want to take too much more of your time.
I'd love to hear more about that someday, about what you do, because when you do what you do so often, right? Like we do, this is all we do. We're not like, Rocket Zoom or other companies out there that I just use that as a euphemism that does everything for everyone. We do one thing we're really good at. And so if you build websites and do media for these nonprofits, you could do something that can help a missionary connect with people who want to donate to them so much easier. And they can stay focused on the mission and not have to try to sit here and figure out WordPress or some other thing. So that's really cool that you do that. I love it.
I was in Thailand last year filming for a guy that planted one of the fastest growing churches I believe it was in the world, but one of the fastest growing in Thailand. I think he was the first. He was the fastest growing church in Thailand for 4 years straight. And Thailand is, I think, 97% Buddhist and 1% Christian. So it's really small Christian population. But it was really cool, because while I was there, I was still editing content for him. He was like, I have this conference coming up in 2 weeks. You'll be gone. I think you'll be on the plane. Is there any way you can get a video for me? I was like, yeah, dude, we already have the video. We already have the content. So while on site, I was able to produce like 4 or 5 videos for him. And it was really cool, because he told me, I was talking to him, I think 2 days ago, and he was like, that video alone helped me more than you have any idea. He was like, that's what we used when we went to this huge conference, and now he's a part of Global Fellowship, and he's a part of a large organization of church planters and helping other people plant churches all throughout Southeast Asia. So it was really cool to see that even just one of the videos that I was able to do for him he didn't have to think about it. He didn't have to do anything. He just had to show up, Just that alone was able to help them, which was really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I love the idea of 1334. And, if everybody can do one part, right, that's like, makes me think of Quakers raising a barn,
Yep.
You got people swinging the hammer, they know how to do that, and everybody takes their part, and the next thing the thing's stood up.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you had just about 30 minutes today, so I greatly appreciate it. I'd love to do another episode at some point.
Yeah, and I'd love to have you on. We just started a show, and I wanted to share with you real quick, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
If anybody wants to start out about starting a nonprofit, right, it can be really daunting. There's so much, like I said, misinformation, and there's a lot of steps that people want to know about, and we've boiled it down to 10 simple things that you need to know if you're even thinking about starting a nonprofit. Because so many people get into this, they're already serving, right? I use the fostering animals example. They already have, they're finding homes for dogs, and they're like, gosh, I can't afford any more dog food. Every supermarket has a little tiny budget. They give away things, right? It's called in-kind donations. And so if you have a nonprofit, what happens a lot of times with our customers is people are like, okay, I need a structure because people actually want to donate to me, or I can go get some free things and serve better. And so if anybody's interested in just finding out what it takes and what, no pressure, we have tons of free resources. We'll sit on the phone and ideate with you and take a call and just help you decide if this is something for you. But there's a gift that's kind of a startup kit that we've put together for your listeners, and it's at instantnonprofit.com/podcast. And so if they just go there, like I said, no strings, nobody's going to come to your house with encyclopedias. We just want to help you understand if this is something for you without all the misinformation. Just strip it down, make it real simple. So if anybody wants to find out, I'd love to hear from you. And, I'd love to hear people's ideas. How are you serving, and what gets you excited to wake up in the morning?
If anybody wants to learn more about you or any of your resources, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. Instantnonprofit.com. We're on Insta. We just launched a YouTube channel. It's taken fire. I'm learning how to get up here and, make sure my hair isn't all over the place and try to make.
I've got to get a haircut.
Speak a couple of coherent sentences in a row, but they can find us on Insta, YouTube, LinkedIn is great. And, there's a little bit to learn, and we just try to boil that down as simple as possible and find out where people are at so we know where to help them get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I really look forward to speaking again, Blake, and appreciate you getting me on your show.
Absolutely.